you're going out in the summertime with a pair of binoculars and you're actually looking up into the trees trying to find out which trees have actually produced that year. You don't want to look right up into the middle of the canopy of the tree. What you want to do is you want to kind of look at the edges of the crown and find where a limb is hanging out and where there's just daylight behind it. You don't want to find a limb that's got 15 other limbs behind it and leaves and it's just a jumbled mess. You want to find like a window where there's just one hanging out and look at that thing for quite a while, pick it apart, look at all the ends of the stems and everything, see if you can see anything. If you don't see anything on that one, find another one. All right, everybody, Thursday Q&A. Today we got 3 that we're going to do for you guys. You can submit Q&As on our website. We prefer video Q&As. We've got 2 videos and one that's kind of a video, kind of a written one. Jacob, what's up?
Doing well. Listen, back to the Q&As. We've had some people ask us, like, I can't find it on the website. There's a tab on the website. Super easy to find. It says listener, question, answer, Q&A. Go get yours submitted, and then like Andrew was mentioning, the video Q&As, just kind of record yourself talking, asking your question, and we'll play it on the podcast. So appreciate everybody that's already submitted them. Again, also linked down in the show notes and video description below, or of course on the website, thesouthern.outdoorsman.com.
Yes, sir. All right. First up, we got Dakota from North Carolina. Dakota wrote in a kind of a written question, and he has a screen recording of what he's talking about here. Unfortunately, the screen recording is of a WMA, so we're not going to show it. So, sorry, Dakota. We'll just cut your picture in here. But what he asked is, while e-scouting on Onyx and using LiDAR on Spartan Forge to double-check an area for a certain terrain feature, I found what appears to be some natural or man-made water holes higher up in elevation, about 1 mile to 1.5 miles off the main road, surrounded by oaks, according to Onyx. I haven't been able to put boots on the ground yet due to work schedule or put out trail cams, but what is y'all's thoughts on hunting water holes early season or any time during the season? Thanks. So what he was showing on the video, I'll actually try to find an example that's not on public land and show it, but essentially it's just like little ponds. And throughout a lot of the South, it could be like a little, or really anywhere, it could be like a little retention pond. Like what he was showing looks like little retention ponds that people had built for whatever reason, which are pretty common. So I'm just curious on your thoughts on this right off the bat, because I've actually spent a decent amount of time around stuff like this.
A year like this year where we're getting so much water, I don't know if it's going to do any advantage at all trying to hunt a water source. One thing that we deal with a lot in the Deep South, at least the parts of Alabama that we hunt, and Georgia is very similar to this as well. You have so many small streams and creeks that as long as it's not just overwhelming drought, there's water over every ridge, some source of water. So hunting water sources can be super, super tough. Now, I know you've had success early season killing deer on water holes in like really bad droughts. But for most of us, it's not necessarily the case. Where you see a lot of guys talk about water holes is kind of out in the Midwest, or out west a little bit further from us, like start getting to Oklahoma and Kansas, where it's a lot of open ground and there's not a lot of great runoff, and they don't get enough water throughout the year to keep water sources flowing and or ponds, wet. So you have a lot more issues out there with water being a limited resource. Us in the Deep South, it's typically not the case. And even in some years during really bad droughts, we have enough creeks that run through that don't dry up. They'll get low, but they don't completely dry up, that there's going to be water, and it's not isolated enough to necessarily hunt over. Now, he's in North Carolina?
Yep.
North Carolina, if you're anywhere, I feel like everywhere I've been in North Carolina, there's water everywhere. I would just look at it, maybe put a camera on it. We've had one guy on, was it Jason Miller from Virginia, now who was he's a bear hunter. Now, he also hunts deer too in public, but hunts a lot of bears. And he likes these little vernal pools kind of higher up in elevation where it's water's not necessarily a limited resource down low, but you get high up on these mountains and it becomes a little bit harder to find water. And these vernal pools, these little natural springs up on the side of the mountain are hot spots where he kills a lot of bear. And he loves hunting that during early season. But if you're like in, again, rolling hill country, it may not be a big factor for you. So, and also, again, we're having a super wet spring everywhere. I mean, pretty much everyone's talking about, like I saw a report yesterday, it was like farmers in, I think it was Arkansas and Mississippi, they're talking about like they can't get crops in the ground. Or they planted 4 or 5 times but it gets flooded out every single time and nothing can grow. So it's not looking good. Like we're having the opposite effect that we've had most years where it's, a little bit drier in the summer, if not pretty dry.
Hopefully it's good for antler growth. Dude, we have been getting pounded by rain.
Every day.
Every day. It's like a severe thunderstorm. I have a little bit different take. I agree with Jacob. Hunting it as a water source, I don't think you're really going to do any good hunting it for it being a water source. What I've done, I've hunted actually around a lot of these. On one of the places in particular that I used to hunt a ton had these little retention ponds all over the place, just like the ones in your video, Dakota. And I always found them to be actually good funnels for deer. Because usually those ponds are up on the side of the hill like you're talking about. They're up in the top of a drainage, and there'll be some kind of little earthen dam or whatever. That's how they created it. And the deer will either swing below or above it. Actually, you remember on the SOA hunt we did a couple years ago, before I killed my buck, those deer were going up that drainage, and then they would walk around the base of that pond?
Yes.
So like that, like I'll see them funneled around that, and I've always had a lot of luck finding buck sign around them, especially on the lower, either on the lower or the upper end of it, and finding rubs. And usually it's like a little habitat break. Maybe they're like here in Alabama at least, there'll be some willows, or maybe there'll be some cattails, or just some like other kind of thicket forming plants around it. And so you get a little bit of a habitat edge there. So I actually like them for that reason. I have hunted around them a little bit. I've never killed a buck on them. I've had some encounters with a couple bucks on them, but I've never actually killed one hunting around those. But I've set up on them where I'm basically setting on one side, like one edge of the pond, watching down the edge of the pond to where I can see the head of it, and those deer would just cut around the tip of that pond, watch it with a rifle.
Now, to answer his question, he's talking about sitting a water hole during early season.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
The only reason is if it was super dry and that was the limited water source. Outside of that, like what you're talking about, Andrew, maybe rut.
We said any time of season too. You got to read closer.
I saw early season. I didn't catch the or aspect. Okay,
he doesn't finish sentences, folks.
I don't need to. I get my gist of what I thought the question needed to be answered. No, but again, I wouldn't look at it from a water source standpoint unless it is extremely dry. You can put a camera on it and see if you have some areas that are getting a little more activity than others. You could luck up and find where a mature buck happens to be bedded fairly close to it, and that's his main water source. There's water everywhere, but that's the one that he wants to hit. So it might be worth looking for tracks in and around it and see if you can find some big tracks or maybe some past sign. And then if you want to hang a camera, great. But I feel like if you had that on a limited ridge line with some good food sources close by, maybe worth it. But for the average person, probably not.
I go check them out. Go walk them. Because again, I would look at it not from an early season standpoint, but more of a funnel standpoint. I mean, you might find some deer bedded near it in early season, but because of where they're at, also bow hunting that would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Just because of swirling winds and all that, that'd be super tough.
Yeah, because you have a break in the timber right there where the pollen's at, so the wind's gonna swirl in that break of that timber, especially early season with leaves on the trees. So you'll get some finicky winds around those small openings, unless it's just straight thermals and there's not much of a wind at all.
Yeah. All right, next up, we got Zach Starling from Georgia. The subject is, does springtime bedding correlate to early fall bedding?
Hey guys, coming at you here from Taylor County, Georgia, about an hour 15 from the Alabama line. I was just calling to see if, like, say during turkey season I was hunting some public ground and jumped some deer out of the bed. Do y'all think that correlates to early bow season? Do you think them deer will be bedded in the same area come early bow season or early season when they don't have much pressure on them to when they were bedded in the spring?
Zach, you got some nice bucks on the wall behind you, by the way. I couldn't help but notice that in that video. He's got some pretty impressive wall, I'm not gonna lie. What's your take on that? So deer, but where he's jumping deer in spring and probably early summer also, does that correlate to early season?
I would say probably not. I mean, they're probably in the area, but really it's not so much cover, but it's like the thermal cover. Like where can they lay? That's a cool spot for them early season, especially talking September in Kentucky, early bow season.
He's in Georgia.
I thought you said in Kentucky.
No, bro, he said Georgia. See, Jacob, don't listen, man.
Lord, it was still September opener. Anyways, okay. For some reason, I thought I heard Kentucky. I heard him talk Georgia, then I thought he said something about Kentucky. Anyway, no, I mean, maybe, man. It's one of those things that's like, that doesn't hold a lot of value to me. Like, if I jump a big buck, like, early summer, like, it'd be cool to go throw a camera on him, but, like, he could shift around depending on what the habitat type is, because he didn't explain what the habitat looked like on that place, whether it's mostly pines and, like, hardwood SMZs, mostly hardwoods, if it's got agriculture on it, how the property lays out. But, I mean, I think it's a good starting point for summer cameras. Again, this time of the year, bucks starting to grow their antlers, you can start putting cameras out and get some inventory of where some of these batch groups are kind of hanging out. It might not be exactly where you're going to probably get them come opening week of bow season in September, but it'll give you at least a kind of a game plan of where to kind of start and then where they kind of start shifting towards. As, in the summertime, a lot of your vegetation starts, what was the term that Alan called? Sequest? Sequesting,
right?
It starts kind of dying off and gets a little more, not woody browse, but the nutrition levels aren't as high in that some of that forage, and they kind of shift around a little bit to kind of find that younger growth of browse as they're feeding in the summertime. So as that shifts, they can move around a little bit. But I think it's a good starting point for some summer cameras, maybe. But I wouldn't 100% bank that's where they're going to be opening week of bow season.
I mean, if you're jumping bucks in turkey season, though, they might not be in that same spot, but they're going to be in the area. So, I mean, I'd say it's a really good start. And kind of like Jacob was saying, I think that early season, it's really just so dependent on food sources. And the thing about them in the spring is I think they're going to be on the food sources, all that new tender green growth that's coming up. And like you're saying, as that vegetation becomes less palatable to them in late summer, they're probably going to shift onto something else. And you might even have some early oaks dropping September for Georgia's opener. So they'll probably shift over to that. But I don't think they're going to, especially if you're hunting like big woods or like a mixed pine setting or whatever, like most people are in Georgia. I don't think they're going to go far at all.
No.
Some of them do, but I feel like a lot of them really don't go very far. So you're in a good starting point, and maybe you go in there and relocate some of those bucks if you're interested in hunting them right before season. Like get in there late summer, throw some cameras.
Find you a good looking branch.
Find you a good licking branch, son. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
That's what I was thinking. Way throwback episode with Troy Pottinger.
175.
God, you got a good memory on that. Okay, episode 175. I'm talking throwback of throwbacks. Troy loves setting up his mock scrapes in and around is like, really, he does them year round, but like spring, like anytime in the springtime into early summers when he's like establishing those community mock scrapes and specifically focus on the licking branch. And he gets inventory all year round from bucks using them and does, but bucks using them even after they shed antlers. So that's something I would look at as well on that property is, trying to find a really good looking branch. Like you found that one, we were late summer scouting when we found that one that you had I don't want to say a lot of details. On the side, one of those big ridges. We put a cell camera on and ended up catching bucks in velvet coming through. I mean, working that licking branch. And they're not pawing the ground, but you found a licking branch that they were using and had batcher grips coming through there hitting the licking branch.
Yep. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things, man. Throwing on that licking branch. But Zach, keep us posted on that. I'd be curious on how you do with that area. If you relocate those deer, I'm just curious on what you see. Because in the past, what we found, like people talk about a fall transition where the deer are shifting and they're going to a different food source, and like a lot of times you'll hear they shift really, really far. And now that we've talked to some biologists about it, but also just with our own experiences with cameras over the years, hunting your typical rolling hill country, pine country here in the South, a lot of times we find that they don't go far at all. If they relocate, it might be like 200-300 yards, like over in the next drainage. We don't typically find that it's like 2 miles or anything around here. All right. Next up, we got Malachi Kreider, who we had a question from last week as well. So, Malachi, I appreciate you sending in another one. This one is about scouting oaks.
What's up, y'all? This is Malachi coming at you from Texas. Just a quick question on acorns. I know everyone that hunts early tries to hunt acorns. I've never had much luck finding acorns on trees, but I know where a bunch of bur oaks are. They just very rarely put on acorns. My question, though, is how early can you start looking for trees loaded with acorns? There's some bur oaks in my neighborhood that they've already got good clusters of acorns on them, and I'm wondering if I just need to put on the boot leather earlier instead of trying to do it all beginning of September, if I should start looking now. And yeah, that's the question. How early can I start looking for acorns? Thanks.
This is something I've done actually a bunch in the past, is go out and you're going out in the summertime with a pair of binoculars and you're actually looking up into the trees trying to find out which trees have actually produced that year. Couple tips on this. First of all, whether you're using a 8x or 12x pair of binos, I actually prefer the 8x's instead of the 10 or 12s. I feel like I can just hold them more steady. And when you're looking up in a tree trying to see those little acorn buds, you got to be super steady. The earlier you do it, the harder it is because they're just so small. They're hard to see. But I carry the Vortex Razor 8x42s. And what I do is I'll carry a trekking pole or some kind of walking stick into the woods. And I will get below a tree that I'm interested in. And I'll sit on the ground and I'll put the binos on top of that hiking pole. So it's almost like a little monopod. And I'll just hold that up to my head and just hold it as steady as I can and look up into the tree. And you don't want to, what I found is you don't want to look right up into the middle of the canopy of the tree because there's just so much going on. It's really hard to pick things out. What you want to do is you want to kind of look at the edges of the crown and find where a limb is hanging out and where there's just daylight behind it. You don't want to find a limb that's got 15 other limbs behind it and leaves and it's just a jumbled mess. You want to find like a window where there's just one hanging out and look at that thing for quite a while, pick it apart, look at all the ends of the stems and everything, see if you can see anything. If you don't see anything on that one, find another one. And doing it right now, it's mid-June. I wouldn't even try it right now. It's pretty difficult to find them right now. When I typically do it is later in July and into August. By that point, the acorns are big enough where you can see them pretty good, especially on those isolated limbs like I'm talking about. And actually, you brought up a good point as well. If you're looking at bur oaks, for instance, versus white oaks versus red oaks, like whatever the case may be, and you have some of those in your neighborhood, and you can go walk your neighborhood and kind of see where they're at and see how big those acorns are right now, that'll give you a good indication of like when you want to go out in the woods, because they're harder to find in a closed canopy forest because there's just so much to look at. So once you're looking at those in your neighborhood and you're like, oh, those are pretty big, they're about maybe the size of a dime or so, they'll be pretty easy to see at that point. So I would totally do it as early as you can. I actually had one instance of this a couple years ago where I scouted this spot. It was like a little bedding area where I knew that deer were going to be during season, and I went in there and I found it one deer season. The following summer, I went in there. I already knew I wanted to hunt the spot, and I went in there I think in early July, and I already knew the trees I wanted to look at. I went in there, confirmed that they had mast, put a camera on it, and then just left. And I never went back until like early November when I knew that those oaks would be dropping. And sure enough, it had bucks all over it. Didn't kill any of them.
Because that was that tight little SMZ that had the thick cover all around.
Oh, yeah, right next to the road,
Yeah,
super thick, tight. And I had two really nice bucks coming in there in daylight all the time.
Yep.
Now, that spot was impossible to hunt just because it was so hard to get in there because it was such a small, thick SMZ that the deer were bedding like in the bottom. They were bedding underneath the oak trees. So I went in like at 3 o'clock in the morning one day, and I had deer like come in on me before daylight and bed down. And then once it started getting daylight and you get little bursts of wind, I got busted pretty much immediately. But if I didn't smell like a human, that probably would have been a great spot. But I'm not a scent control guy. But what you got?
So I agree with everything you said. But one thing that I think we've talked about this before, but I kind of didn't think about it until I guess we just interviewed. Episode will come out in a little while. Talk about going out after like a big thunderstorm with high winds, kind of late summer, like specifically like in August, and seeing if you can find acorns blown out from some of those trees. And then, of course, how developed they are and all that kind of stuff. I think could be super helpful. And he was talking about that specifically. So that's something maybe also to kind of check out is, a little bit later on in the summer, specifically probably mid-August, maybe late August, going out and looking, and specifically going out after big thunderstorms come through with high winds, 40, 50, 60 mile an hour winds, and go and check out and walk some of those areas that there's some oak species that you want to look at and see if you not only see them in the tree, but also if you're seeing any green acorns laying on the ground that got blown out of the tree.
That is an excellent point, actually. I forgot who brought that up. Don't say it.
It's who we just recorded with.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Last night?
Yes.
Dude, I missed that part. Shoot, man.
Yeah.
God.
No comment.
No comment. Anyways, no, that's actually a really good way to do it also. Probably a little bit easier. And with the abundant, well, I don't know how it is in Texas, but if you're in central Alabama, by God, we're getting some thunderstorms this summer, dude. You could probably go out right now and go ahead and start finding the little buds, which, I located some in the middle part of last summer, but like we talked about last year, the crop just kind of fell on its face there at the end of the summer, I guess because of the drought. But anyways, if you need some binoculars, by the way, you can go to eurooptic.com and use the code Southern10, and you get a discount on any Vortex binoculars over there at EuroOptic. So, like I said, I like those Razor 8x. I think you have some 10s, right?
Yeah, I got 10 power razors, but also I've got some 12x50 Vipers.
Yeah.
And personally, I kind of want more magnification.
All right, guys, we're out here today. Got a little in the field tip for you. We're scouting this fresh clear cut. I think this was cut sometime in the spring. We identified this using onX's recent imagery layer. This image is about 2 weeks old. They update this every 2 weeks, so you're getting brand new satellite images. So we were able to find this beautiful clear cut. I mean, look at this. This looks like where a lot of big bucks get killed in the south in rifle season. So we're actually using this tool along with the topo map to walk and look at this low spot over here to see if we can find a good rifle setup for when the rut comes in a couple weeks. So we're gonna walk over there and check that out. In the meantime, if you want to access this or any of the other features available with the onX Elite membership, use the promo code Southern and you can get 20% off.
Hey guys, it's Jake. We got a quick tip for you in this podcast. One thing I've been working on over the last year is trying to figure out how to be less bulky really while saddle hunting and mobile whitetail hunting. And the biggest issue I always had was I really liked really large packs, and the problem was outside of certain points of the season, like when it got really cold, I never used the full capacity of some of those really big backpacks. One thing I started doing is using a smaller pack that has a lot more expandable capacity, so you can still pack a lot of stuff if you need to, but it's also very streamlined. It's super easy to go in and out of the woods with, especially during early season or just when you're not packing a lot of cold weather gear. This is the Latitude Ranger 22. I used this all last season, and I could pack a surprising amount of gear in that pack, specifically a bunch of cold weather gear, both bibs, jackets, extra layers, along with a platform, or when I was hybrid hunting with a small little lock-on, having a small lock-on on here as well, along with my sticks. And this backpack works really well with that. So if you're in the market for a new backpack and you're trying to streamline what you're doing, I'd really highly recommend looking at the Ranger 22 from Latitude Outdoors. And you can check out the Ranger 22 at latitudeoutdoors.com.
I like the more magnification for some, like if I'm hunting a big clear cut or something, but man, they're hard to hold steady. Well, like the more magnification, it's just like anything. The more magnification, the harder it is to hold steady. And when I'm trying to look up in that tree, it's almost like glassing when you're out west. Like I want it to be so still that it's just easy for me to like pick things apart, especially when they're little bitty. But anyways, sorry.
See, now I want to know how good you pick out acorns this late summer since you get LASIK, you get better vision.
Oh yeah,
might be I don't know, the superpower.
Oh, Hawkeye over here now,
dude,
son.
Forget the contacts at the house.
Yeah, isn't it a crazy time to be alive? They just shoot a laser beam into your eye and you're fixed.
Did they have to cut it? Don't they have to cut like?
Yeah, well, the first laser fillets the front eyeball off.
Dude, no.
I mean, it doesn't feel like anything.
I don't care, man.
I mean, Yeah, it'd be
What do
different.
you see in your eye when you're laying there on the table? Sorry, we're getting distracted on this podcast. When you're laying on the table and you're looking up, what is it? Just a bright light laser hitting you? That's it, or like, is there anything else going on?
It just looks like you're looking through water. Like it just, you can still see. And then when they do the laser that actually fixes your eye, it's just like a little green light. So you just kind of look at the
Do you
green light.
feel anything during any of it?
Nothing.
Do they numb you?
Oh yeah, they numb you.
Like shoot something in your eye?
No, it's eye drops.
Oh, okay, good.
They
Okay.
never.
I heard
there's-
someone one time talk about like it was like a needle. Like
If it was a needle, I'd have been out.
That's what I thought this whole time
Not
was a
doing it.
needle.
Negative.
And I was like, oh,
I'm out.
no.
I'll just be blind.
no.
No needle. It's numbing eye drops. When he was doing the surgery on me, we're so off subject right now.
This-
When he was doing it, they finished the first eye. I didn't feel anything, and they like do the drops in your eye, and then he like gets a little Q-tip and he pokes your eyeball. He's like, "Can you feel that?" You're awake. You're talking to him. And on the second one, he like touched my eyelid a little bit, and I was like, I felt that. And he's like, don't worry, like you're numb. And I didn't feel anything. It was nice. It was nice, dude. It was crazy. It's insane. Seriously, like LASIK is the most mind blowing thing to me. I just walked. I've been blind as crap my whole life. I walk in, do the surgery, go home, go to bed, wake up the next morning, we got 20/20. It's crazy. I would do it. I'll put it this way. For anybody out there thinking about doing it, if I had to redo it every year, I would do that. That's how easy it. I mean, it was so like it. I was literally in and out in less than 30 minutes. Didn't hurt. If they're like, "Hey, to keep this up, you got to do it once every 12 months," I'd be like, "Sign me up." Anyways,
Okay. Like, thankfully, I get pretty decent vision, so I ain't.
LASIK Vision Institute ought to do a sponsorship with us. Get a discount code.
Sure.
We'll get Jacob's vision fixed.
Mine's pretty solid. I ain't too
You
worried.
got glasses, don't you?
I don't need them.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I can still outbeat you. Hawkeyes, baby.
I don't know. We need to have a contest.
The only time it's bad is like if I'm sitting in a tree up in the saddle and the wind's kind of blowing, dude, my eyes will water so bad, dude. And then it's like I'm over here like trying to wipe my eyes, look around. Like, you know, it's cold mornings, that wind's kind of blowing, you know, like 8, 10, 15 miles an hour. And it's hitting me, dude, my eyes start watering. I'm like, I can't see a crap now. But it ain't because my vision is serious, it's just my eyes start watering. So
Yeah. Dude,
be hunting like big old safety glasses.
honestly, I've hunted in sunglasses before because of that. Where you're hunting in like a real stiff breeze, I'll bring my sunglasses with me and
No,
throw them on.
no.
Throw them on in the stand, boy.
Some clear safety glasses would be fine. But anyway, so, well, that derailed the conversation. Appreciate
Yeah.
everybody writing in Q&As. It was good.
I appreciate it. Y'all write in some more. All right, what'd you think of old Dr. Ditchcoff, his episode?
To be honest, I have not gone back and re-listened to it. So I'm kind of thinking back from the actual interview itself. And actually, so one of the guys we just interviewed, I'll leave his name out, but he brought it up because he had watched it. And he was talking about, like, he brought up something that we discussed in the podcast that after he reminded me about it, I was like, yeah, that is super interesting, that if you kill 10% of the animals or 10% of the deer on your property, you're going to go down 20% on observations just based off use cases of how they're using the property. And specifically if you're shooting does, how much more often you're going to see does, specifically on like food plots, how much more often you're going to see does on a food plot versus a buck based off their nutritional needs, you know, with a fawn and everything. And I thought, yeah, I'm like, that is really interesting. So it's like, it's not necessarily like you're hurting the herd by killing 10%, but you're hurting your observations. But then again, like Alabama, I'm pretty certain they just passed. Now we can kill 2 does a day in the state instead of 1 doe a day.
Yeah.
Which there's some areas in Alabama that probably need that quite a bit. There's public land we hunt. There's so many does, it's stupid. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I'll tell you one thing I enjoyed so much was like he was nothing like I thought he was going to be. Like when he first came in, like, dude, I was like kind of intimidated, like just, you know, sitting down like super professional, and we started talking to him, he started like kind of loosening up. I was like, oh man, like Dr. Dishkoff's fun, dude. Like, I'm digging this. This is a good time.
Yeah, great personality. He's super fun on the podcast. We're going to have to get him back on.
But what about you? Any specific takeaways?
I really found it interesting where he was talking about the whole thing with Grant Woods and what they did on his property, where they made a map of basically everywhere that they hunt, and then the next year only hunted the places they didn't hunt the year before and tripled their success.
Yeah.
You know, these are all biologists and like they measure everything. So they measurably tripled their success, which is pretty crazy. That's pretty cool. So it got me thinking, and on my hunting club, there's a log book, and you sign in your name, date, and what units you hunt. So on our club, it's like broke up into numbered units, and you sign out on a unit. So it's like I'm hunting unit 32 today, or whatever the case may be. Well, they put that in the logbook, and that logbook's just sitting in the camp house. So I go flipping through it, and there's like 4 years worth of data in there. And so I took pictures of all those, and I put it in a spreadsheet, and then I made a map with it, and I made a heat map of where all the pressure has been on the club. And it was interesting, to say the least. But so I'm going to try that. I've actually never hunted this club. This is the first year I've been in it. But I'm going to actually like consciously try that this year. I'm going to go, the first places I'm going to scout this summer are going to be those units that there's some units that got hunted 0 times last year. And then there's a couple that got hunted maybe 1 to 5 times. And then there's some that got hunted like 25 times.
Yeah.
And you know, it's kind of a little bit the opposite of what you would expect. So like the heat map, you know, our checkout board or pinout station is on one side of the property, right? Like kind of like if you divided it into 4 quadrants, and it's in the lower left quadrant, most of the pressure is down there on all the units right around that.
No, but
Then most of the other high pressure units are in the opposite corner of the property, the top right quadrant of the property. So I don't know what's going on up there, but that was pretty hunted, and a lot of the stuff in the middle, very lightly hunted. That was pretty interesting.
I wonder if there's one reason that could be the case is y'all's road system. Like, you have to drive through those middle units, and a lot of guys like, I don't want to park someplace that actually, well, they don't want to park someplace dead center where everybody's kind of coming through. But also, I think subconsciously, a lot of deer hunters always want to go to the exterior edge of their property.
Yeah.
Because they think, oh, maybe there's a higher, I think subconsciously, they're like, there's a higher odds of something coming back and forth across you and your neighbor versus the dead center of the property, a buck living right in the middle of it.
Yeah. Well, and Mike's been going out and scouting. I haven't scouted it really at all yet just because we've been traveling so much. But Mike's been out, and pretty much everywhere that we've started to look, we're finding buck sign where we wanted to find it. And he's finding a good bit of rubs. He's found scrapes. I've found a couple scrapes already that are going to get some cameras on them. So it's looking solid so far. I'm pretty excited. I'm very excited, actually, especially with the amount of rain that we're getting. You know, there's like multiple factors that go into antler growth, and people will talk about, well, the previous year's mast has a lot to do with it. Like if they have plenty of mast and they're fat after the rut, like they didn't get run down too bad because they went into the rut so fat from all the carbs they were eating in the form of acorns, then they're set up for successful, better antler growth the next year. And then if you have a really wet spring and summer, that helps antler growth as well. Well, last year we had a terrible drought. We had a bad mast year, but there's like no oak trees anywhere around here anyways. Like there's a couple oaks in the SMZs down low in the bottoms, but we don't have like big expanses of mast at all. So I don't think that the bad mast year is really going to affect it, and we're getting so much rain that I'm like, fingers crossed.
Yeah, there's going to be browse all over the place. It's going to be stupid.
I had a buck come by one of our cameras the other day on public that's it's on a licking branch. The camera's been there for forever. Still taking pictures. And a buck came by that one. He's actually thrown like a rack already, which is kind of surprising to see. So probably this weekend or next week at some point, kind of between all these trips and the trade shows coming up, I'm going to get out there and deploy pretty much all of our cameras and see what I can find.
Yeah, no, that'd be super exciting. I think with the wet year on a property like that, it's going to be really good because it's just hopefully going to be an explosion of browse. Plus, there's a couple parts of the property that they sprayed herbicide and definitely killed understory.
And they burned parts of the property too.
So again, with all that moisture, maybe some of that will kind of start to regenerate, and just good, bad thing. Good thing, you got food everywhere. Bad thing, you got food everywhere.
Yeah.
But, you know, just be able to kind of hold some deer on the property and, you know, but not may really make it any better for huntability but just give you a better opportunity to like hold the deer, hold the numbers right there because it's a property you can't bait on, and give you a decent opportunity to come this fall. So that's super exciting. By the way, because you mentioned trade shows, I did want to mention this. We have coming up, it's the weekend of July, like 11th, 12th, 13th, is the World Deer Expo in Birmingham, Alabama. We're going to have a booth there. So y'all come by and hang out with us. I think it's booth 605 is our booth number.
Yep.
But it's going to be a good time. Super excited. I got Michael Perry next to us. I got Daniel Lemon and Jeremy Aaron on the other side of us from Do It Yourself Hunter, DIY Hunter. So super excited about that. It's going to be a great time. Then we have the GOM Blast Expo at the end of July in Georgia. Y'all come out. If you're a Georgia guy, come out and hang out with us. And then in August, we have the Mobile Hunters Expo, Dalton, Georgia. I'm beyond excited.
Yeah, buddy.
Starting around August 8th. Super excited about that. It's going to be an absolute blast. So if y'all are in the market for some mobile equipment, if y'all want to come try out some Latitude saddles or try out really anything, that Mobile Hunters Expo is going to be a fantastic place for you to try a bunch of different products, a bunch of different companies, talk to some really high educated whitetail hunters. And there's going to be quite a few biologists there, including Dr. Bronson Strickland.
Yeah.
Which is going to be really fun. So if you've like some of
Well, hey, you know who else is speaking at the Mobile Hunters Expo? Bobby Worthington.
Bobby Worthington is going to be at the Mobile Hunters Expo in Dalton, Georgia.
Yeah.
So if you've ever wanted to pick Bobby Worthington's brain on anything, come hang out because, again, he'll be hanging out, I think, all weekend. So you get a chance to talk to him, which will be super exciting.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. And our booth is right up against the seminar area, so we'll be right there with y'all watching the seminars. It's going to be awesome. We had a crazy show last year. I mean, crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yep.
I didn't get to leave the booth for 3 days. It was fun, man. We had a great time. So it's going to be another good show this year. In other news, we're going to Iowa, son.
Yeah, Drew, Iowa. Super excited.
Oh, yeah.
Super excited.
So I didn't get I wasn't holding my breath because I don't want to talk about draws because I don't want to give away the
We did not have the points I thought we needed.
No, I didn't think that I didn't think we were going to draw. Like I was actually looking at other states already because we're like maybe we'll do Arkansas, maybe we'll do Missouri. I don't know. Because what we like to do, because most of our ruts in Alabama, depending on where you're at in the state, is December or January. November, there's really not a ton going on, unless you want to travel to a different part of the state. So in November, it's kind of fun to go somewhere else that has a November rut, Midwest hunt somewhere. And so that's what we were planning on doing this year, but we drew Iowa. Archery tags, going to be hunting the rut. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I'm pumped.
I'm excited. Also, a lot of people would need Drew, too.
Dude, I know. Like that day, I'm like, everybody's going Iowa.
Like everybody know
Perry drew, Daniel drew.
a lot of people drew Kansas this year that I know, and a lot of people I knew drew Iowa this year. So it was a good draw year.
Yeah, man.
And then hopefully we draw some alligator tags, by the way.
Yeah.
In Alabama.
Ooh, buddy. Ooh, buddy.
So coming up, but yeah, no, super excited about that.
I think our plan for Iowa this year, as we travel around, I don't know when we're gonna fit it in because our summer's busy.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to get up there. Now, you've hunted this area before in the past, so we got a little bit of experience with it. But just general overview. What's your plan, game plan going into Iowa?
I mean, the big thing is trying to find quality rut funnels on some of this public because some parcels set up better than others, and it also kind of comes down to I don't know what the local pressure is going to be like because it is kept at a certain number of non-residents. I forgot the number, but it's not like it's a big number, but it's not like crazy, not like 3,000 people or anything for that unit. But so there's going to be non-resident pressure, but I'm also wondering like what's the resident pressure going to be like? Because I feel like when we were there, when I've been there in the past, there's residents that definitely hunt public, but a lot of them seem to like know a farmer or have a connection somewhere where they have some private land. And I hope that's what we find during archery season. hopefully everybody's got like a little private parcel they want to go hunt on, and they're not bouncing around so much on the public. But it really is just rut funnels. I already know of a couple really good rut funnels and some thick cover, bedding cover that just the hard part is getting in there. But you know we can definitely do it. But one thing that you'll enjoy, and I enjoyed it, it's kind of like Kansas, but you can see a lot because by the time we're there, crops are cut out. It is a lot of open ground and not a lot of cover. It's the complete 180 of Alabama. Alabama's
That's why we're going to hunt there.
Alabama. It's not even just a lot of cover, but it's just
Change it up.
so much timber you can't see. Like you're not visually observing deer very often outside of like being in the stand or slip hunting or walking around, whatever. Or out there's like some of it, not all of it, but some of it, a good portion of it, we can look at from the truck.
Yeah, I'm excited, especially now that we have a year of experience in Kansas hunting at similar terrain, archery equipment in the rut. That gives me newfound confidence. How does Kansas last year, and you didn't kill one in Kansas last year, but you had a very successful hunt. I mean, you saw a lot of really big deer, had an opportunity, just didn't happen. How does Kansas last year factor into Iowa this year for you?
Bringing a crossbow.
Bringing the bow gun.
Yeah, no. So, now, I mean, the big thing is we're going to find a lot more sign there, a lot more sign than we saw in Kansas, specifically buck sign. And it's just having faith. If you can find where the doe groups are spending time and you can find a tight funnel, which we shouldn't have a big issue finding some tight funnels out there, kind of like how it was in Kansas. If you sit on it, you should have an opportunity. Bucks cruising through. But also, the difference of Kansas is bedding was kind of weird. Like, it was kind of hard to figure out where they bed at. Mm-hmm. Not going to be the problem in Iowa, from what I've seen in the past. Like, it's pretty, like, we go out there like, that is definitely bedding. That is bedding. This CRP field's bedding. This cedar thicket is bedding. And you can find the open woods around, because there's a lot more thicker cover in Iowa. That's one thing I talked about in past years when I've gone is it's more thicker cover than you would think there would be, which to me is great because there's a lot of open ground, but also there's patches. Some of them are pretty big patches of thicker cover that deer are consistently bedding in from what I've seen in the past. And it's like finding the food source the does are going to, and we're two good bedding areas with a good funnel in between. I've already got 3 in mind.
Okay.
So
sweet. Well, we're going to be talking a lot about that probably next week. But we got to hop off here. We got something we got to be on real quick. So it's going to be a little shorter outro than normal. Y'all write in some Q&As, and we'll cover those next week, as well as probably talk a little bit more in depth about Iowa, what our plans are there. We got a decent number of questions on that for how we plan out-of-state trips and whatnot. So we'll cover that on next Thursday's episode. But you got anything else?
No, appreciate everybody watching, listen to the podcast, and we'll catch you back here on the next episode from the Southern Outdoorsman. And remember, guys, y'all stay Southern.